We are streaming.
Good evening, fellow councillors, Town Council Planning Clerk, the Town Council Planning Consultant, and the members of the public which are registered to speak tonight, and also to the members of the public on the live stream. Can I just remind you all, if you could all be on mute, please, and when requested to speak, if you raise your virtual hand. But for the first agenda item for the election of the new chairman of this group, if we could actually vote using our normal hands raised up, and then once we've counted everyone up, and we'll ask you to put them back down. Okay, let's go to item 1 on the agenda, and for the election of the chairman of the Planning Consultative Committee. Bill?
Can I nominate him, Bradley?
I hadn't even finished then. Do we have a seconder then? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. In that case, do we have any other nominations? In that case then, can we vote on electing Councillor Bradley as the chairman of the Planning Consultative Committee for the year 2021-22? And that, I believe, is unanimous. And therefore, congratulations, Councillor Bradley. I will now hand over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Am I up now, Lisa?
Yes, your host now.
Oh, thank you. Right. The next thing we have to do is elect the vice chairman. Please, could I add to the fact that the deputy chairman of planning I think has a much greater involvement within the planning committee as compared to being deputy chair on other committees, since he or she also has to attend the 9 AM meetings for chairman's actions and additional chairman's actions, both of which are planned at this moment to run via Zoom, which then entails something up to 50 planning meetings a year. So I just thought I'd let people know what's involved in being vice chairman. Do I have any nominations? Councillor Fradgley? Demute yourself.
Sorry, no disrespect to Councillor Dowling, but he's had problems in getting 2 chairman's actions over this last period. May I nominate Councillor Taylor, because he's actually been able to attend all of these. It won't be in perpetuity, but may I nominate him?
I don't think the mayor can do that.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I have to draw that nomination.
I have to admit I don't know that particular rule.
It is a rule. It has always been. The mayor's ex officio on every committee, and he can't be a chair of them.
True.
Right. Do I have any other nominations? Councillor Fradgley?
I nominate Councillor Dowling.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Jackson, Councillor Foytek, yes.
Can I just check with Councillor Dowling, because he has had internet problems in the past, and I know he was trying to do something about it. So
yeah, it's
a caveat that actually he can actually attend. Yeah,
it's just about cured, and as I say, the final branch is coming down on Friday. I got the Sky people around, and that's what it was. The tree had grown over the blocking the signal. So I've taken one branch down. I've got somebody coming to take the main branch that's blocking the signal. That should be fine then.
But The other thing I'd say, can I just ask? I mean, the Mayor, Mr. Mayor, has been very good in attending in Councillor Dowling's absence. Is that still going to be okay for you to do, Mr. Mayor, or would you need an additional deputy for the 9 o'clock meetings? Because on occasions I would be able to do the 9 o'clock meetings if there's a problem.
I think we elect.
Sorry, we when we come to the end of the meeting, we ask for in one of the last minutes, we ask for people who can attend chairman's actions.
Yeah. Okay then. Yep. Fine.
As a substitute.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I have a vote then on Councillor Dowling being deputy chair? Blah, 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 blah. That looks unanimous. Right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Right, item 2 on the agenda, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Just had Councillor Curtis. That's the only one I'm aware of.
I think Councillor Alcock has also given apologies. I think it's problem. It's school's on holiday this week, so and there's a certain freedom to get out of Stratford. Item 3 on the agenda: declarations of interest on items on the agenda. Do I have any declarations of items on the agenda? There's one thing I need to tell you before you commit yourselves, is that there has been an additional come from the additional chairman's actions, and that's planning number 210129401294 Cox's Yard, change of use of floor of the theatre to a 3-bedroom guest house, an independent apartment and associated internal alterations. Whether or not that makes any difference to any councillors' declaration of interests, please say so. Okay, so there are none. Item 4 on the agenda: to receive written requests for dispensation. Well, there are none. Item 5: to grant any such requests. There are none. Item 6: consultation presentation on pre-planning applications, and we have 2 this evening. 6.1, which is Swan's Landing Phase 2 proposal, and I believe Mr. Carvalho and Mr. Williams are present to put the case. Is it just one of you that's presenting, or both of you are presenting? You can unmute yourself.
It was just going to be one of us, if that's okay.
It's one of you. Yeah, I just need to know. Right. Well, the procedure is that you've got a presentation to give. You can give your presentation. It will be timed on 10 minutes. The committee clerk, oops, we've switched. The committee clerk will time you, and she will give you a signal when you've got 30 minutes left. When would you like to start? Would you like to start now?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, proceed. Thank you.
If you could move forward a slide, please. Obviously the Swans Landing was approved last year. If you could move forward a slide. The vision for the scheme was to obviously sort of kind of create destination distinct place, the Stratford-upon-Avon, between the canal side location and the town and country. If you could move forward a slide. So this is the illustrative master plan that was approved last year for up to sort of 500 homes. If you could move forward a slide, please. This is the phasing plan for the proposed development, and phase 1 was approved last year as part of the outline, and what we're talking about today is phase 2, is the large area in red. If you could move forward a slide, please. So this is the SPD context that was put in place. So you can sort of see in the bottom left-hand corner there, councillors, that this is sort of kind of a quarter of the larger Canal Quarter Master Plan, and we're bringing this forward in line with the policy. Could you move forward a slide, please? And as part of the outline approval, there was a set of parameter plans that were set for the development to come forward. So this is for land use, which shows the phase 2 area on the left-hand side, which is now coming forward as residential area. And then on the right-hand side is the building heights parameters. Could you move forward a slide, please? The access and movement plans, which sort of kind of show the connections from Timothy's Bridge Road and how they'll come down into the scheme. And then the open space and strategic landscape, which is embellishing and enhancing the canal side walk. And then a second pocket park, which sits within the phase 2 scheme. Could you move forward a slide, please? So our scheme sort of kind of goes over 2 character areas, as we call them. So the canal side, which is about enjoying the park and the space onto the canal, and then the housing quarter, which is the main body of the housing within the sort of kind of belly of the scheme. If you can move forward a slide, please. So the Reserve Matters Master Plan, which we put together, comes forward on sort of 3 hectares of land. It's delivering 112 homes. Roughly 10% of those 11 homes will be affordable, and we are bringing this forward in line with those parameter plans that we talked about to celebrate sort of kind of the canal side and the park, and then also some homes onto the nose of the site in the form of an apartment building, which is 15 apartments. This is a slight change from the outline master plan, which had a larger building. From the comments that we received on the phase 1, we look at scaling that back to a modest 4-storey apartment building, which will be more in keeping with the sort of kind of the general feel of the master plan. If you could move forward a page, please. So this just sort of shows the difference between, on the left-hand side, the outline master plan, which had a large apartment building with a landmark sort of 6 stories onto the corner, and the right-hand page now, which is our proposals, which has a 4-storey apartment building, reduced parking court, and more homes, more of a softer, smaller scale feel onto our proposed park and the canal side towpath. Can you move forward a slide, please? So this is sort of embracing the concepts and character areas that we had set out in the original outline master plan approved last year, trying to pick up on the character of Stratford. As part of the application, we've done a study of the areas around Stratford-upon-Avon, which were more successful, and brought those forward to create this canal side. And I think this is from Guild Street and West Street, more of the 3-storey townhouses, which would sit onto the park. Because of the scale of the park, it allows us to put sort of slightly grander house onto it. If you could move forward a scale, please. And then this is the apartment building, which sits onto the corner. We've tried to lock that into the nose of the site, which comes down. We've got the railway bounding to the sort of kind of northeast, and then to the south of the scheme opening up is obviously the canal and the towpath, and we're aligning that, and we're embellishing the corridor, which is the natural corridor through the towpath, and widening that to sort of 11 metres. If you could move forward a slide, please. So then we've tried to pick up on the sort of kind of contemporary vernacular of the scheme, which has been built from phase 1 and from the studies that we've done on Stratford. We've tried to sort of kind of try and make sure that 4-storey feels like a room in the roof, to actually help keep the scale of the buildings down as well, so that it will sweep nicely with the housing that is coming around the arc of the park. If you could move forward a slide, please. And then we've got the sort of kind of the housing quarter, which is sort of kind of the belly of the scheme, is really the more sort of 2 and 3 and 4 bed houses. There's some minor changes from the illustrative outline master plan to deal with some of the technical issues that we've had to overcome from services coming in under the railway. There's a small little park that's been incorporated to the very north corner of the scheme. And then we've tried to realign the green grid that's coming down that main artery at the back, which is then going to link to the park. We've also created a green corridor alongside what is the commercial buildings of McVeigh and Umbers on the southern boundary of our site, just to help a bit of a buffer whilst we wait for those buildings to come forward. If you could move forward a slide, please. And then this is an illustrative sketch and scheme of the housing and how we're trying to pick up on the Stratford vernacular, where the green grid's coming through those streets with the trees and the movement of people coming and moving along sort of kind of that back corridor. If you could move forward a slide, please. And then it's just sort of starting to show the different types where we've got sort of kind of some gabled ends and steps up, some of the details from the housing in and around Stratford that's been very successful, and how we're trying to incorporate those into the houses as we're turning corners into courts and facing onto routes. If you could move forward a slide, please. So this is the proposal for the master plan that then fits into the illustrative approval that was given last year, which we feel is an improvement on where we were, and we think enhances the canal quarter, and would really like to get your feedback and thoughts on that. If you can move forward a slide, please. So the programme and the next steps for us is to have a community consultation in mid-June, on the 16th of June, which everybody's invited to, with a targeted planning submission hopefully at the end of July, with an approval coming hopefully in October, and then a start on site in March 2022. That's the conclusion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Right, could I now see who wants to ask any questions? Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, can you just clarify? You say there's been some changes from your previous submission. Can you just clarify the change to the housing mix, if any, what the impact has been, and what you had before and what have we got now?
So generally what's happened is the apartment building, we had a large apartment building on the nose of the scheme, which is now reduced down substantially. So we've got more houses, and we've tried to provide more 2 and 3 bed houses within the scheme, just to help balance that out. So I think one of the feedback from council was on the first phase, which was very around Timothy's Bridge Green, if you recall back then, was sort of kind of more apartment led, and we're now trying to balance that out with more housing.
Can you just clarify the number of bedroom properties that you've got? What's the mix across the site of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties? And has that changed from what you had before? Yeah.
It's increased from what we had before. I haven't got the exact numbers to hand, but I can get those to you, Councillor Jackson.
So the total number of houses has increased?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? But the actual mix is the same? Or
no, the mix has increased in favour of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses.
Right, okay, yep.
The next Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Sorry, it always takes me a bit of time to unmute. Just a couple of questions. One is the affordable housing. Is there any view on the tenure? Will it be shared ownership, or will it be houses for rent?
I would have to ask my colleague. Yeah, ask my colleague to answer that one from Berkeley, from St Joseph.
Hi, sorry. So the affordable housing is basically a discount market sale at the moment. So
it's all rent to buy rather than to rent as it sits.
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, a bit sad that, because I think we're going to be in need of a lot of rented accommodation going forward as we actually come out of COVID. I think there will be issues there. The other thing I just wanted to ask was the way in which is cycling incorporated, shared pathways for cycling, connectivity for cycling as well, to make sure cyclists can get off the development and into the main sort of drag.
Yeah, so we have designed it to make sure that it connects down to the towpath. We obviously don't, there's a small portion of land that we don't own between the towpath and our site, which is the Rivers Trust, which St Joseph's are in negotiation with them to make those connections at the end. So we've designed those pocket parks to come and bleed in and be part of that. Just like we've got wider connections across the canal with the bridge. So we can't put the bridge in ourselves at the moment, but we've safeguarded the land within the park for the bridge to land and make those connections as the development to the south comes forward as well. So it's all been worked up with the cycles in mind and with that connectivity in and through the site and down the towpath.
Thank you. Yeah, that bridge is long desired for, long waited for. Thank you.
Councillor Foytek.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just to sort of to find out what your expected timescales are for this development, for this particular section, sort of what you sort of expect, when you expect it to start and complete, I suppose. Thank you.
So I think at the moment what's being committed to is obviously hopefully going through the planning system smoothly. Doesn't always happen, but that's what we hope, with an approval and a start on site, I think in March 22 is what we're planning for at the moment. That will obviously then, those amount of homes will be delivered over a sort of series of phases and timing in there. Ash, have you got any sort of kind of timeline when the first house would be delivered out of that?
I haven't got a timeline, but we can share that with the town council after this meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Foytek. Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, really. First of all, what provision has been made for electric charging points within properties within the development? And two, what is the provision in both the park areas that you're providing? What will that encompass, and how does it assist the community that are going to be living in the development? And then finally, the actual street scene of the houses that you've provided, I think, looks incredible, but that design doesn't seem to have followed through onto the apartment block. Is there any particular reason for the difference in the apartment block to the presentation of the houses?
Yeah, so I'll try and pick those up. I understand, and Ash, correctly if I'm wrong, but Berkeley have an undertaking to make sure that there's electric charging points in all of the homes that they provide. So every single home would have those, which are a great thing that they offer. In terms of the park and what that's going to do, this secondary park, which was always meant to be for the residents and the locals, a little bit different, I suppose, to the first Timothy Bridge Green Park, which was always wrapped around the commercial space, was a little bit more of an attraction for the cycling and the linking or the changing of transport modes or getting onto a paddleboard, all those kind of things. This park was always envisaged to be a little bit more natural, a little bit more reflective, a bit more of an oasis for those residents and those homes that it was being built around. So sort of kind of the longer grasses and the natural play space, rather than the sort of bouncy chickens or that like, really is kind of what was imagined in that space. To be fair, the team's still working up that detail at the moment, so we've got a little bit more to go on that. I don't know, anything else to add, Ash, from your perspective on that?
At the moment, no, it's still a work in progress, but we obviously welcome comments.
And then the last question about the design, I think what you're seeing is we've worked up some CGIs of the streets where they're a little bit more finished. We haven't done the CGIs of the apartment building yet, so you've got very much the flat CAD drawings. I would hope, Mayor, that by the time we come to submission a couple of months' time, we'll have some nice visuals and you'll see it looking as good as the houses in the streets.
Sorry, just one more point to add to the green space. We have also added additional space to that crescent area from what we put in for outline.
Thank you very much.
Right, I don't see any more hands. Am I going to have any more hands? Sorry. Oh, Councillor Dowling.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I can't find my virtual hand. I just want to. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's been explained to you, Mr. Williams, that we can't give we can't make any sort of decisions and tell you that we like something, or we can just give you some hints about what we think might go through, because we can't say anything for or against the development until such time as we actually come to the actual planning application for legal reasons. But I will say that when you do come, we are going to need those housing mixes. We're going to need to know those housing mixes, and we're going to have a much more detailed plan about parking and the access to the river and cycling at that time. So just a heads up, really. Thank you, Chair.
No, thanks, Councillor Dallin. We do have that level of information. Obviously, we've got 10 minutes today, so we've not delved into it, but I'll speak to the colleagues, and I'm sure there's stuff that we can provide to you after the meeting so that you can sort of see that granularity a little bit ahead of the submission.
Sorry, could I ask you to clarify something? Was the housing mix fixed at outline planning stage?
No, it wasn't fixed in that there was up to 500. There were up to numbers, but as we've looked at not putting as many apartment buildings in, we've obviously going to provide more housing instead of apartments. So that does change the mix slightly, which allows us to get a better blend, really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fradgley? You've still got your hand up. No one else? Just, I've got a thing about chimneys. Are they all going to have proper chimneys, not plastic ones?
I think what tends to happen is a proportion nowadays, which will have some chimneys on, but generally they're not needed. Unfortunately, our building regs now don't allow us to seal houses with chimney flues in. So they become very much an aesthetic rather than actually providing the function of an open fire, which is what obviously they were originally designed for. Which is a shame, and it works against us when we come to do the building out and the construction side of it. So it's that honesty that you're not just, like you say, putting something on for show that's a fiberglass chimney, but it's not actually performing its job as a chimney should do. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you or make you aware of is that we've had some developments that have gone through over the last year or two, and then we've had issues with the construction management plan. So a piece of advice is make sure we know everything before you want to come to do the development. I know you've probably not got so many residents in your way, so to speak, but it has been a big issue in Stratford. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it's a very tight town, so yeah, when being sympathetic and thinking about how you're going to impact on people, I know that St Joseph's are very thorough on that side of things, so I would hope that you don't have any problems with them.
I'll just give you a tip before you go for a drive down Bishopton Lane.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see anybody else wanting to ask any question. Thank you very much, both Mr. Williams and Mr. Carvalho, and we look forward to seeing you. Judging by the timetable that you've given to us, it's sort of late summer be coming to us. So we'll see you again in a few months' time.
Yeah, just want to put in there quickly is we have got a Zoom community consultation event on the 16th of June, which everyone is welcome to, and we have issued out the newsletters, which have the link on there also.
Sorry, could I? Councillor Dowling has found his hand.
Yeah, sorry, I have found it. Yeah, just one other question. Have you taken into account the new local plan, the neighbourhood development plan that we put together for Stratford? Because that's has a very very good number of the housing mixes that we expect, and it's a legal document. So I'm hoping that you've taken that into account when your plans have come to fruition.
It was coming to fruition at the time that we were developing the outline master plan. We did try and include as much as we could on it. I think there were a couple of items that we had to deviate slightly on in terms of parking, but then it was coming up with car clubs and other things to help with the parking numbers, just where we've got a very urban dense scheme. So parking wise, we're looking at one parking space per apartment and 2 per home. Then we supplemented that with a car club and then more cycles and electric charging. So I think there was, being honest about it, that was the deviation that we had.
Okay, I'll be very interested to see when it comes up. Thank you.
Okay, well, you can stay and listen to the rest of the meeting if you want, or perhaps you might like to leave. Right, I'll go on to the next item, 6.2, and it's a pre-planning for the Marina Tapas restaurant. I'm sure you all know where the Marina is. We have, I believe it's Mr. Scoffham who's going to do the presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that for the whole 10 minutes?
Yes, it won't take 10 minutes, but I'm sure I'll be able to explain the scheme from there.
And Mr. Jews is here to answer some questions as well.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Right, would you like to start?
Yeah, so the site is opposite Compton Bridge and is in a central sort of location to the conservation area and actually sits within the river itself and provides a good access point from the car parking to the town. If we can have the next slide. Oh, yes, that's it. Thank you. As you can see, the site bounded in red is where the bistro is, which is only a small bistro, but over the last few years has gained in popularity because of its great location and obviously the food and drink that it serves. You can see that the red line actually borders the back of the footpath to the marina. The marina is due south on the drawings. The client over the years has developed this site into what it is now through planning permissions for change of use and for change in fenestration, and has become quite a little bustling little development. Recently, COVID has narrowed and focused the mind on how we could extend the restaurant facility. As you can see, it's quite small within the area. Outside of the restaurant, there's decking which is used by the bistro and which is at the same level as the bistro. Should point out that the decking is raised because of the likelihood of flooding. This all went through planning and through the Environment Agency and got approval previously. So there's quite a large area of decking which has a balustrade around it. And then in front of that, there's a small gravel, well, it's not gravel, but a small hard standing area for additional tables. Next slide, please. So you see that the current building, you'll see it from the road, is fairly traditional in shape and has the staging in front of it. You can see that on the southwest elevation and on the end of the northeast elevation. So that's the existing building. There is a flat above where the client who owns the building actually lives, and he has an office at first floor level as well. So he has, stayed in the area and is looking to keep this site in pristine condition. The next slide, please. Again, that shows the existing staging with the handrail, where a lot of people during the nicer weather will sit out and take tea and dine and breakfast and evening meals and whatever. Next slide, please. So the proposal, which is a refinement of the previous approval, previous application, which got refused. As you can see, it takes the shape of the site by stepping in one position. This is so that we can achieve the number of covers, the optimum number of covers for the bistro, which was aimed at 50. Obviously, in COVID times, it'll be less than that, but we're hoping that we'll be able to shake free of COVID in the not so distant future. And this facility can provide a service to people as it's well used, and the client is taking bookings just to to sit outside at the moment. The entrance is off the top of the existing ramp, which is in the middle of the site. Can you just try and point? That's it. That's the main entrance to the site. In the main entrance to the bistro. And you can see that we've actually simplified the shape down in terms of plan, and have a large overhang on the roof, which is a flat roof, and I'll come on to that in a minute, because it's south facing, and we're using mostly glass to get maximum light and views. The next drawing. So I think that's the same. Can you go to the next drawing, please? So on the elevations, what we've come up with is a design that is very simple in style, and very modern. That's it. Thank you. We're maintaining and emphasising the structure of the building and the glass, and making the horizontals and verticals with within the glazing as subservient to the main structure. One of the points of the glazing is that we need, if we had sliding folding doors, we'd still need a balustrade to stop people falling off the edge of the deck, the higher level. So what our client has asked us to come up with is a system of vertical sliding windows that actually drop down to the permanent. The bottom panel is fixed, and the top panel slides down, which means that the whole of that elevation, all the way around to the handrail, can be open to ventilation, which obviously helps in the summer to keep it cool, but also helps with the current situation in COVID for ventilated spaces, and doing it naturally is obviously more energy efficient than use of mechanical ventilation. The previous application has been simplified, and as you can see, it's a fairly simple structure, and the flat roof is proposed so that it doesn't impact on the building itself, and views from the building. As our client obviously is living there, he's keen that he should maintain his views and be able to monitor the marina, for which he has. The two slides here, I'm just wondering, have you got the PowerPoint presentation we sent, please?
Yeah, my sincere apologies. I've just started showing obviously the architectural drawings rather than the PowerPoint, so I'll bring that up now. So I do apologise for that.
No, that's okay.
I think I've picked the wrong slides to show. So there we go.
So if I'll go through very quickly this now. So if you just go onto the next slide, please, and the next slide. So for those of you who don't know where it is, Compton Bridge is highlighted there, and the site is to the northeast of Compton Bridge. Next slide, please. That's the view as it is at the moment. As you can see, the decking is there with the balustrading, and there are a number of umbrellas up, even though this was taken, fairly early in the morning, and usually there's so many umbrellas there that you can't actually see the building. And one of the issues that they've got is that the site is so popular that they expanded onto the forecourt, as it were. And unfortunately, they've got no space to store the umbrellas and the chairs. We've tried to get planning permission for a self-contained storage unit on the site, and even gone to the lengths of floating it if there's a flood, and cladding it with Western red cedar, but that got refused. So the other aspect of this is that we can tidy the site up by having all this furniture in there. So if you can go to the next slide, can you go to the right, the view from Clompton Bridge?
You have 30 seconds left.
Okay, can you go to the bottom slide then, please? So if you click between the bottom and the next one, you can see the proposal as opposed to the existing. You can just click between the two. And I think you'll agree that it has very little impact on the existing building and provides everybody with a view who uses this of Clompton Bridge, which is somewhat not seen unless you're on the water.
That's your 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Scoffham, could we finish there then, please?
Okay.
Right. Any questions, Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, can you just clarify the position about the number of covers? I think what I'm seeing is that what you're doing is you're not in the future. You're not going to have any outdoor dining at all. It's all going to be within the new structure. So I suspect the number of covers is going to be the same. Is that right?
The number of covers that's there at the moment will be approximately the same as what we're going to get ultimately when COVID rules don't apply. That's what we're aiming for. And 50 is a key number for bistros and restaurants in terms of covers, because it helps with making it viable, basically.
Yeah, that's right. But in the future, there's going to be no outdoor tables. Is that right?
That's the proposal, is that it's all inside so that we can make it tidy.
Yeah, so it's still going to be dog friendly. That's the big question. That's the...
I can ask the client's got a dog, and I'm sure he will be making sure that happens.
Right. Councillor Fradgley? Oh, you've got a hand. Oh, it's a white hand. Okay. Does nobody else want to ask any questions at all? No. I could ask perhaps. I know you've got a car park there, but I don't know how many it holds. Is your car parking sufficient?
I'll ask the client that. From a planning point of view, it is sufficient, but I'll ask that my client, John Dews, if he can answer that one. If that's okay. Okay, John, you need to unmute if you.
Yeah,
unmute.
demute yourself, John.
So yeah, as he's not been able to work the technology, there is a large car park there.
About that.
Okay, here it goes.
Oh, now that says mute, not sorry, back to front. No, there's a car park of between 80 and 90 cars, depending how close they come. There is plenty of room. The car park would serve the larger building that we've got planning permission for. So, but we're not going to do that development.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else wanting to ask a question. So thank you for your...
Can I just make one point about being outside or inside? The whole idea of this building is that you're sitting on an umbrella, basically, because the sides drop right down. There's a lot of roofs, opening lights in the roof. So you're sat outside, not inside. That's the whole, with the windows dropped down. It's the same sitting on this balcony now with an umbrella above you.
Yeah. Right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Juice.
Okay.
We're hair lifted into the structure, are we?
Yeah, you get you, we can drop you in. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Well, we also hope to see you in a few days or months or weeks time or whatever. Thank you.
We'd love to have you all down here and show you what we can do.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Goodbye.
You can stay for the rest of the meeting if you so wish, or
I think Jeff and I will leave.
yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right. Item 7, public participation of non-agenda items on matters under which the council has control of or is a consultative body. We have no anyone wishing to speak in public. Item 8, to approve the draft open minutes of the Planning Consultative Committee meeting held on the 4th of May. Could I have your agreement to those minutes? I know some of you weren't on this particular committee on the 4th of May. Right, do I have everybody's agreement? Okay, accepted, thank you. Right, we're now going to go on to item 9. List of planning applications, and as I've already mentioned, from additional chairman's actions yesterday morning, we have deferred the changes to proposed changes to Cox's Yard. No doubt some of you can recall the previous pre-planning presentation we had on Cox's Yard. I think this is different from what we've seen in the pre-planning. So I'd like to call upon Neil to do the presentation of what is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's a fairly quick presentation. The proposal before you is a change of use of the first floor of the theatre to a 3-bedroomed guest house and also an independent apartment and various internal alterations. I think we probably all know where it is, but effectively Cox's Yard here, and the building which is subject to this application is this middle one in here. It's within the conservation area. It's also adjacent to a grade 2 listed building, and the Clopton Bridge is also a scheduled monument as well. So the building subject to this application is here. So just to run through what's going on. Building A, which is this building here, the large one, is the pub, and that's staying where it is. Nothing's happening to that. Building B, which is the front end here, is the cafe, and that's staying. Nothing's happening to that. Building C, which is the building in the middle, which is the subject of this application. The ground floor has a kitchen in relation to the cafe. That's not being altered in any way. The first floor is currently a theatre, and that's the element of the building that's changing, or is proposed to be changed to the guest house, and the independent apartment is to the other end. The second floor of the building is currently theatre, and that's staying as a theatre, so there's no change there. So it's just the first floor of this part of building C. Building D, which is the one down here, is a cafe, and that's staying as well. So in terms of the ground floor, no change. That's exactly as it is, as I've described. In terms of the first floor, that's the first floor currently as a theatre, laid out as a theatre, and this is the proposed first floor plan. So you come in here and you've got a bedroom with a kitchen area and an ensuite there. The second bedroom is effectively mirrored. We've got a kitchen, bedroom, ensuite, and there's the third bedroom there. Again, bedroom with a kitchen area and an ensuite. And the independent flat and apartment is accessed via a separate staircase, and that's in there. So there's like a kitchen area and a dining area there, bathroom there, and obviously lounge, sort of bedsit, lounge bedroom there. In terms of the external elevations, again, no changes whatsoever to the external appearance of the building. So it's just about the first floor of building C, that middle building in here, changing it from a theatre to 3-bed guest house and an independent flat. That's probably all that I need to say with the presentation. Thank you.
Right, questions for Neil? If you could, points of clarification. First, Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, can you just remind us what the previous pre-planning application that we saw, was that going to get rid of both the theatres and have development on both floors, the first and the second floor? Is that right?
I can't be sure, but I think it was for the first floor and the second floor to change to accommodation. But at the end of the day, that was pre-planning.
Yeah, I know.
And this is obviously what's before you. So
yeah, but I got the impression from last time that there was a lot of negative public reaction to the loss of the theatre, and I just wondered, now that one theatre is remaining, whether has there been any negative comments from the public about it at all?
There's been no comments from the public whatsoever. The only correspondence on the file is from the Environment Agency, who, as I understand it, haven't raised any concerns. They've just simply suggested some conditions with regards to finished floor levels. Not quite sure why, because, as I say, this is the first floor of the building, is the only part of the building that's subject to this application. If that floods, we're all in trouble.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thanks.
Could I say, Councillor Jackson, that this was on additional chairman's actions yesterday morning, so it is a very, very recent application, and we will probably be the first to respond to it.
Oh right, yeah, I did look, and I couldn't see any comments from the public, so
no,
they might come in. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, I think if you recall, after pre-planning, it was all over Facebook the next morning.
Yeah. Yes.
Councillor Jenny Fradgley.
Thank you, Chair. I did actually give a heads up to Councillor Kate Rolfe, whose husband is involved with local dramatics, that this was coming up a few days ago when I first actually heard of it from the district. And so I would have hoped that we would have got some feedback from the amateur dramatic groups by now. If there is no feedback, I don't know what assumption you make there, but I just thought that was an interesting, that was a useful piece of information. Can I just check? I don't know if I mean, you imply that you don't know, Neil, but can the theatre, as it exists at the moment, still operate in the facility it has left?
Well, ultimately, yes, it can. There's still access. Let me just share the screen again. Bear with me 1 second. Right, so the lift and the stair access to the first floor and the second floor of the building are in this part of the building. So you come into the first floor and there is a corridor which leads to the individual bedrooms. So in theory, people can continue going up the stairs onto the second floor of the theatre. I haven't got the second floor plan because it's staying as it is. The only thing that I did think was that if you have a performance on the second floor and you've got effectively a residential environment on the first floor, and then you've got a cafe and kitchen on the ground floor, you're almost sandwiching a potentially sensitive residential use between a theatre use, which could have, you know, loud music late into the evening, etc., and then the obviously the kitchen and a cafe accommodation on the ground floor. So, but if I'm being honest, I mean, you're in the centre of the town. There's a lot of activity going on. There's a pub right next door with a very extensive outdoor sitting and eating area. So there's going to be an element of noise and hustle and bustle. And I think if you were to have a residential environment in a town centre, you'd expect that. And of course, this is not permanent anyway. It's a guest house. So you would anticipate that it would be short term, overnight, long weekend or maybe a week or something. So that was my only potential issue in terms of the conflict between the uses. But in theory, the theatre could still operate on the second floor, and that's obviously it proposes to continue doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foytek?
Yeah, it's a question for Neil, really.
Is this a point of clarification, Councillor Foytek?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's really just is it a planning application for a change of use along with a full planning application for what they're proposing to do as well, or is it just for a change of use at this stage?
It's effectively the same. So it's a full planning application to change the use from theatre to the 3-bed guest house. So you're considering I suppose the loss of the existing use, the effect of the new use. There's no physical changes to the outside of the building, so that is not something that you need to consider. There was a parallel listed building consent application with this, but that is purely determined on the basis of the heritage issues. And at the Chairman's Actions meeting, we did return a comment on no representation subject to no adverse comments from the Conservation Officer. So it's not unusual if there was no heritage harm or objection, but there was a planning objection because of the loss of the existing use or perhaps the inappropriateness of the new use, etc. So, but for this application, you just need to focus your comments on whether or not you believe that first floor change of use from theatre to 3-bed guest house and that independent flat has any conflict, etc., with your neighbourhood plan. And on that point, I would just say that obviously you encourage the homes in the town centre, if you like, as a policy TC7 in your plan. There isn't a specific or direct policy that seeks to prevent the loss of entertainment, leisure, theatre uses. And I would suggest that since there are other venues in the town, you might struggle to uphold a valid objection on the basis of the loss of the theatre, particularly since it's being retained on the second floor as well.
Okay, that sort of kind of clarifies it. It's just I suppose my only concern is that once you lose a community facility, it's gone forever then. So that would be my only concern. But yeah, thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wanting any clarification? No. Tell me, Neil, did they say anything about availability of car parking?
I don't think they've got any car parking. There's obviously town centre car parks, etc. I'm not even sure if Cox's Yard has got a car park. There's a service area which is parallel to Bridgefoot, I think, isn't there? But I don't think there's that you might be able to get some delivery vans and a couple of staff cars in there or whatever. But I don't think there's a car park. So people who are visiting in the guest house will either visit arrive via public transport, or they will park their cars in the numerous car parks. But obviously you've got Bridgefoot car park fairly close to this, so they would almost certainly park there.
Thank you. Okay, nothing else for clarification? Thank you. We have no speakers for this, so we can go straight into the debate. Who would like to open up? Councillor Dowling.
the permanent apartment, if you like, that used to be a house anyway on the end of Clopton Bridge. There's always been a house there. I can't see that parking certainly wouldn't be an issue. I can't really see any reasons that we could defend legally in front of the district council. I agree with what Jason said, that it's the loss of a theatre is a blow, but at the same time, if nobody's been using it, nobody goes there, I can understand why they want to put 3 guest rooms in for a guest house. It's a good source of income and more customers for Mr. Hughes, I would think. But I can't see any reason that we could defend it legally.
Okay. Right. Well, Councillor Fradgley.
I think it is a theatre in use. I mean, I've been there pre-COVID. I think it is still used by a theatre group. But I understand the theatre group is comfortable with the retention of the theatre where it is. So in that case, there seems little reason to actually not go with this application. However, I would like some surety that the theatre above will have some protection going forward. I would not want to see this as a little bit of a salami slice of taking a bit off and then coming back later to actually take the whole theatre out, because as I understand it, that is an active dynamic theatre group.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I'd just like to agree and enforce that point. I think we need clarification, really, or confirmation that the remaining theatre will be fully sustainable and there won't be restrictions imposed or either deliberately or accidentally on the theatre remaining as it is. That's probably, it needs to be able to open normal hours. So yeah, you don't want restrictions on that would effectively close it down.
Sorry, Councillor Jackson, you won't get that decision tonight unless Neil already knows the answer. Are you suggesting that we put some kind of condition on it?
Well, I'm looking for Neil as to guidance as to what we can say, but I think it's the loss of both theatres. I think would be an issue. Quite whether we'd be able to oppose it on planning grounds, I'm not sure. But I think the fact that one of the theatres is staying, I think that's good, and on that basis, I'd be prepared to support the application. But I just need reassurance that it can stay and it's going to be, there's no restrictions imposed on it that would sort of force it to close down in the future. That makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. I'll just go around the table now. Councillor Lee.
I've got no further comments.
Right. Councillor Taylor. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I slipped up.
That's okay, Chair, don't worry. Well, having the advantage of seeing this at Chairman's actions, I think from a planning point of view, there is very little that we could actually object to at present moment. I understand all the concerns about the theatre, which I'm sure the public will have some input on. But if maybe the site doesn't proceed this way, then commercially it may not be viable in the long term, which may cause the theatre a bigger problem. So I don't think we actually have anything within the planning remit that could stop us, that we could object against.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Foytek.
Yeah, there's just that concern on the community use, really, and it is a change of use that's been requested, and there aren't many community facilities around in Stratford, particularly in the town centre. So For me, I would object.
Thank you, Councillor Foytek. Right, you've all had something to say. Does anybody else want anything to say before we go to a proposal? No, thank you. Right, would somebody like to make a proposal? Councillor Fradgley.
I would propose no reps, but with a caveat that consideration must be given to the longevity and protection of the theatre that remains.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, I was just sorry. I was looking at Neil's face, and he was putting a face there, which made me think we could have difficulty wording it. But in principle, I would be. That's what I would argue for. I think.
But before you take the vote, may I just comment on that? It's a tricky one. I know what Councillor Fradgley is trying to suggest, but you can't grant a planning. Well, I say you, the district council can't grant this planning permission on the proviso that the theatre remains on the second floor, or you can consider. And I've started to draft some comments, and I'll show you in a moment. Sorry to preempt, but I can see perhaps the way it's going. Is it as long as the change of use that's before you doesn't prejudice or jeopardize the continuation of the theatre use, then that's as far as you can go. What you can't say is that you can only have permission for this if you carry on using the theatre, because obviously at any point they could just stop using it anyway, and it could just be empty for 10 years, which nobody would want to see, obviously. So it's a tricky one. I know, and it's sort of thin edge of the wedge, perhaps. But unfortunately, you can't set a proviso that they can only have this if they continue running the theatre. That's not quite how it works, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, we have a proposal and we have a seconder.
It needs to be slightly reworded, that proposal. I mean, it would be no reps. And we would urge the planners to consider the longevity of the, I don't know, I'm struggling with the wording, Chair.
Could you say that there would be no restrictions on the use of the second floor as a theatre?
Yeah.
Would that work?
Yes. Would that work?
If that question is pointed at me, sorry. I hear what you're saying. I think if you go to the vote, then we can have a chat about the specific wording of the comments that you submit. And as I say, I've drafted something already, which I think captures the mood.
Thank you. So it would just be a simple no reps in this case, and then the nuances would be in the comments.
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, well, I'm probably suggest we deviate from the no reps and do no objections, but you'll see why in a moment as I've couched the comments. It would seem more appropriate to put no objections rather than no reps, because you are in theory making some representation on this particular one.
Okay.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Fradgley?
Yes. Yes.
Are you happy to second that, Councillor Jackson?
Yep, fine with me. Yep.
Right, could I take a vote on that proposal, please? That's 1, 2, 3. Right, and could I have those against? Right, so it's carried with just one objection. Right, Neil, would you like to show us the screen?
Okay, so I have hit the no objection button, and the comments that I've drafted so far are as follows. The Town Council is concerned about the loss of community uses and theatre space. However, given that the theatre is remaining on the second floor of the building, and providing its viability is not prejudiced or jeopardised by the residential use below, the Town Council does not object to this application.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yes,
Fine with me.
Proposed.
It's good.
I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're happy with that, I shall
Right.
submit. Everybody happy with that?
Yes. Submit, Neil.
Okie doke. That's gone. May I be excused now, Chair, unless you need me to
Yes,
do something else?
certainly, Neil.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Cheers.
Neil.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Neil.
Item 9.2 on this, isn't it? 9.2. To note the action by the town clerk after consultation with myself and the mayor.
Noted.
Myself and the mayor were at both meetings, chairman's actions and additional chairman's actions.
Noted.
Okay,
Noted.
thank you. Item 3, there's no street aid trading or no licensing. Item 4, notices of decision. I'd had a look at this. There's quite a few decisions being made, most of them obviously to grant. There is one at 7 Henley Street, which we objected to and has since been withdrawn. My recollection of that is that it didn't fit the street scene in Henley Street, the proposal. And then there's another one in 6 Halford Road, which we objected to and has been withdrawn. I think that one will be coming back with adjustments pertinent to what the Town Council had to say. It was number 5, Alveston Pastures, which we went no reps, but it was refused. And there was an application to expand the number of properties in Trinity Close, for which we went no. Trinity Close is the one opposite the Holy Trinity. We went no reps, but it's been withdrawn. And the last one was 76 Maidenhead Road, which we went no reps, and it's been refused. Councillor Taylor. Sorry, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I've done it twice. And that was a building that was at the bottom of the garden, so to speak.
It was an enormous carport.
Anyway, it's been refused by the district. Now, item 5A is the South Warwickshire local plan. I would like to call upon Councillor Lee to give us his views on this particular matter. Would you like to start, Toby?
Yep, certainly can. So I don't know if you've all seen it. It's quite a vast document.
Yes.
But to be honest, the most important thing you could do about understanding what it is reading appendix, I think it's appendix 2. So within the document, the 2 district councils have basically asked 50 questions, and it's more 50 questions because some of them have got sub options. My view on it is really it's pretty laudable in what they're trying to do. It's all about trying to address sustainability in a lot of different ways. In fact, most of them I could just simply sit and answer yes. Again, for the context of what they're doing here, this is a scoping exercise rather than actually coming up with a plan. So probably the more interesting bit will be, okay, this is what you plan to do. What will the plan actually look like? So that's probably where we'll get a bit more interest. But generally speaking, it's like, well, yeah, do you agree that sustainability issues should be addressed in the plan? And if not, why not? It's a pretty similar question they've asked. Probably the only things that are really of any consequence which require a bit more thought is section 6 of the document, where they ask probably more difficult questions. The first one's really about affordability of housing and how that should be addressed. That's probably one, well, difficult one to answer, but could be worth putting a response in. And they've also presented in this section 6 options for growth. So within the document, they've provided effectively 7 different plans for how they could grow the economy effectively, and in terms and populations, in terms of the various settlements across the 2 districts, and they sort of vary from having a growth plan around rail corridors, which probably isn't that great because the rail isn't particularly massive, and going through to really bus corridors, main roads, existing settlements, what they've termed enterprise hubs, and dispersing it also in terms of around the 2 districts. So for me, it's not something I think we desperately need to respond to in any great detail. It depends on what views you have as to whether you agree with the concept of having a South Warwickshire plan or not. But I think we could probably put in a response without going into every single 53 question and providing an answer. But it's potentially something you could spend hours on it if you really wanted to. But I'd be interested to get views of anyone else who's read it.
Tell me, Councillor, I mean, is this something that the town council should be responding to, or councillors as individuals?
I think you could do both, but I say that the scope is vast, to be perfectly honest. There's nothing in there specifically around Stratford that I could really comment on. Again, it's talking about concepts of how the plan could be developed. Probably the one point is worth noting, it would be a plan for 2050, which I've never seen before. They've been gradually getting longer and longer. Whether that's sensible or not, I'm not entirely convinced. But there's nothing in here which says we definitely need to respond to it, other than perhaps welcome the later drafts. Because I say a lot of it is things that people would agree to, possibly apart from that section 6 in the document where they're getting a bit more into growth. But again, it's done at such a high level, it's difficult to really comment on until you actually see the plans come out. But as a scope, I've got nothing I'd particularly object to in the making of this plan.
Is it a core strategy by another name?
Effectively, if you could imagine the core strategy, but it's also covering Warwick District and it running till 2050, that's basically what it is. One of the things they are doing within the document is doing a call for sites. I think it's difficult for us as a town council to well, you could argue that, but I think we're probably quite limited in scope. It's probably more aimed at developers, and that would probably be the thing that we'd have the comments on as to what came out of the woodwork. But yeah, it's very ambitious, I'd say, and I say a lot of laudable aims in there. It's really about what they then do with those and what they propose the way forward is in the next stage of the consultation.
Well, I mean, they have delivered an A4 to every household in Stratford and Warwick, haven't they? I mean, I've got one in front of me now, which was pushed through my letterbox.
I've not had one yet. Yeah, I've had a good read through the document anyway. So,
well, I think John Careford is trying to tell everybody that they'll all get this document. Councillor Fradgley.
Just a couple of points. I mean, the affordability thing concerns me, and I do think we need at some point to make some comment about that. And tenure as well. I don't know if that's going down to too fine a point at this stage, but I was quite concerned in the last discussion that we had that all the affordable housing was going to be for sale, which means that it's not going to answer the issues that we're going to be facing up to over the next 20, 30 years. So I think affordability and tenure is very important. The other thing is, it was quite interesting. I had a talk with John a few weeks ago, and he was saying the local plan that we have at the moment is very much a housing plan and doesn't really answer the questions of how we actually go forward economically, because it doesn't really have much policy for economic growth and economic sustainability. And we found that actually in planning committees, where we actually want to make comments about viability and what we want and mix of businesses, and actually try and support a way forward in our town. There isn't anything there to enable us to do it. It's all, it's market forces. So I think looking at it, it's the two bits that would actually concern me greatly is this kind of affordability and tenure. And the other thing is to make sure that it's got some very high level policies which will be fleshed out on the way in which we're actually going to approach future economic viability in the area.
On the Southwest Relief Road.
Well, infrastructure is another issue, and I think what's happening to us at the moment during day trips from Birmingham, Coventry, Leicester and all over, Stratford is an absolute honeypot, and we don't have the infrastructure to cope with so many people wanting to come to Stratford on a very hot day. Or Warwick. Talking to somebody this morning from Warwick, we've got the same issues.
Yeah. Right, Councillor Wojtek.
Yeah, it was just really just to agree with what Councillor Lee said. It's a very overarching sort of project without the sort of specific detail that we'll want to see at a later date. And I think what Councillor Fradgley said about affordable housing and getting into that detail, it is somewhere probably a little bit further down the line. But yeah, the overarching sort of economic well-being and sites of interest for development are going to be in that sort of overarching plan. Only from what I've seen from the meetings I've attended with the sort of Warwick District Council as well as with Stratford District Council.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to say anything? No.
I'm just thinking, Chair.
Yes, Toby.
Do we want to put in a response to it? I say for me, it's I wouldn't propose doing anything detailed, but on the points that have been picked up. I mean, to be honest, I think the way the question's worded is they're looking for ideas on the affordable housing. So if we do have any ideas, because they've not proposed anything, then it's a good opportunity to put those points down early. I think everything else is I think happy. Yeah, please look at sustainability and consider all these things when you develop your plan. I think is a very, very simple message we could put across.
When you say we, Councillor Lee, are you suggesting any particular we?
As in me. Do you want me to write something?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll write something. I'll send it to you on email.
Right. Send it to the committee.
Yeah, so, yeah.
With a deadline, because this isn't this.
It's 18th,
if I remember rightly, isn't this another use of the day, the 21st of June?
Yes, it is the 21st of June. Yes, so the Monday. I was thinking, there's something else on the 18th. I think I've got to do. I've got loads of deadlines around about that time.
Yeah. Okay. Are you all happy that Toby scribed something and he will put it out and you can have a read and respond? Okay. Right, thank you. Thank you for your volunteering, Tony, and your presentation as well.
OB.
Okay, we'll now go to item 10, Chairman's verbal report. I haven't really got much to say. What I could tell you is that I am aware that there is an application coming forward, re the Laura Ashley building on Bridge Street. And from what I can gather, they're talking retail on the ground floor and apartments above. I can't remember how, is Laura Ashley 3 stories? I can't remember, but it's apartments above. And the access and egress for the apartments, I believe, will be Gill Street, rather than coming through the retail shop on Bridge Street. So I am anticipating that we'll be seeing that within the next couple of months. The guy did want to come and do a pre-presentation this evening, and he only spoke to us last week. And when he found out he didn't think he'd be ready for coming to see us this evening. And I think he's planning to formally submit it by the time our next meeting comes across. Okay. Item 11, request for alteration. Believe it or not, we have had a couple of instances where the planning officer has asked us if we would change our decision on there's a couple of items. Both items were to do with subservience, and we chose not to change our decision because we always look for subservience on
easy for you to say.
Yeah. So we did stick to our guns, and in both cases, as a result of that, the applicants did take some notice of it, and they came back with amendments to make them subservient. So the town council is having a bit of pushing through our neighbourhood plan and all that's associated with that. Okay. Item 12, to register when necessary a representative for planning meetings at the district council. Well, we haven't seen any agendas yet, so I'll let you know when I see an agenda to see if we've got to make any representation. I can also tell you that the district council planning is going back to being held in the council chamber. They're not having Zoom meetings or Teams meetings or whatever. All I can say is thank goodness for that, because attending the district council planning when they're using Teams as an outsider is not a very pleasant experience. Right, item 13, to appoint substitutes for the next chairman's actions on the 16th of June.
I should definitely be there now.
We've got, thank you, Bill. We've got Councillor Dowling back on board. Can I have a substitute, Mr. Mayor? If one of us suddenly finds that we've got something else to do at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I can cover that. I can cover that.
Kevin can always come as well. Mr. Mayor can always come as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the date of the next meeting is the 22nd of June 2021 at 6 p.m. and I'm going to close the meeting at 19:29. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Cheers.